Nothing changes the world faster than the moment someone asks whether it has a single order at all. Welcome to another story in the series From Wonder to Power, The Journey of Thought. Today I want to show you how Thales, the order of the world as principle, marks a quiet but decisive shift, when curiosity stops being satisfied with stories and starts demanding structure. For generations, people explain the world through memory, metaphor, and shared wisdom. Storms have personalities, rivers have moods, fate moves through symbols. It works well enough to survive, but it does not explain why things happen the same way again and again. At some point, that becomes unsettling. Patterns begin to feel too regular to be accidental. In this episode, we step into the moment when wonder turns restless, when someone looks at the sea, the stars, the seasons, and thinks there must be something underneath all of this, you see. Not a god with a temper, not a story with a lesson, but a principle that holds even when no one is watching. This is not yet science. It is not disbelief. It is a reorganization of trust. Meaning starts to slide away from tradition and toward explanation. Order is no longer remembered. It is searched for. And once the world is thought to have a hidden structure, power will eventually want to control it. This is where that long journey truly accelerates. The harbour of Miletus is loud with difference. Euphemus, a young merchant, moves between ships from Egypt, Lydia, and Phoenicia, each one carrying its own gods, customs, and explanations of how the world works. When the winds change, sailors argue over whose deity is offended. When a storm breaks suddenly over the port, blame scatters in every direction. Euphemus listens, unsettled. Too many stories explain the same event. The world feels fractured, ruled by impulses that refuse to line up. Along the shoreline nearby, Thales walks at an unhurried pace. He watches the same waves crash and withdraw, feels the same wind rise and fall. Yet he does not hear quarrelling gods in it. He notices repetition. The river swells each year. The tide returns when it always has. The stars move in paths that do not argue with one another. When Euphemus brings his questions, Thales does not answer with myth. He bends, scoops water into his hand, and lets it slip away. Many forms, one substance. The gesture is simple, but it rearranges the problem. Chaos may be visible, but unity might sit beneath it. Seen from above, the shift is quietly radical. The ancient Mediterranean explains the world through plurality. Many gods, many causes, many stories living side by side without needing agreement. Thales attempts something new. He searches for a single principle beneath the surface, an arché that orders nature without moods or intentions. Water becomes more than an element. It becomes a bridge between change and continuity, present in life, movement, and decay. This is not yet science, but it steps outside myth. For Euphemus, the thought does not disappear. If there is one underlying principle, then storms and harvests belong to the same logic. Events connect. The world becomes readable. Diversity remains visible everywhere, but beneath it, a quiet order begins to show itself. Here, myth does not collapse. It loosens its grip. Logos enters softly, through recognition rather than revolt. Where the river loosens into the sea at Miletus, Thales pauses as a shepherd's son fills a clay jar from a shallow spring. The boy complains that the water tastes different each day, sometimes sweet, sometimes metallic, sometimes heavy with earth. Thales does not correct him. He asks him to trace the water's path. The spring feeds the stream the river the rains the sea, and the sea returns everything again. To the boy, this sounds like coincidence. To Thales, it is continuity. One substance, endlessly changing. You see. Later, in the agora, Thales walks beside Melita, a wool trader anxious about the Meander's floods that can ruin pastures overnight. He does not speak of angry river gods or offer consolation through myth. He draws a simple line in the dust with his staff, showing how water follows slope and ground, how it shapes land by rule rather than temper. Melita begins to sense that what feels like misfortune may be rhythm. Water shifts from threat to principle, something that can be anticipated, perhaps even lived with. From above, the attempt becomes clear. In a world held together by stories of divine quarrels and bargains, Thales proposes something quietly disruptive. All things share a single essence. Water is both symbol and substance of that unity. It nourishes and erodes, dissolves and carries, appears as vapor, rain, river, sea, blood, sap. It changes without losing itself. This is not poetry for Thales. It is a clue to how reality is built. In a port city where traders and sailors mix daily, the idea begins to circulate. If water underlies life, then events are connected. Diversity becomes variation, not contradiction. As dusk settles, the boy returns with his jar, seeing the stream differently. Thales makes no proclamation. He points. Unity does not sit behind the world. It moves through it. The marketplace of Miletus tightens in an instant when the ground shivers beneath the stalls. Dorea, a farmer's daughter, freezes beside a crate of early figs as pots clatter and voices break into prayer. An old man crosses himself and Poseidon's name. Others scan the sky for signs, a bird moving the wrong way, a cloud shaped like warning. Dorea feels the familiar fear rise, not of the earth itself, but of what the gods might be signaling, you see. Nearby, Thales watches without joining the chorus. He kneels and presses his hand to the ground, not to appease a power above, but to feel the movement below. When Dorea asks which god they have offended, he answers that none have been. The earth moves because it must, not because it chooses. The words barely fit inside her world. She has learned to read every crack, illness, and failure as intention. Thales asks her to imagine something colder and steadier. Events follow causes, not moods. Later, near the harbour, a sailor named Agisandros hesitates before a voyage. A storm is forecast for the evening, and he fears the sea god's displeasure. Thales studies the sky instead. The air thickens, clouds stack low. The wind shifts with patience. He explains how heavier and lighter air move, how warmth and coolness pull the weather into shape. Winds do not decide. They respond. For Agisandros, the thought unsettles and steadies at once. If storms obey patterns, they can be read. If they can be read, they can be endured. Seen from above, the change cuts deep. Gods have long served as visible explanations for fear. Removing intention from nature removes fear's most reliable shelter. It also drains the world of a familiar language. Yet Thales does not empty the sacred. He relocates it. Order replaces temper. As dusk approaches and the storm gathers offshore, Dorea watches the clouds again, this time with curiosity rather than dread. Myth still lives in her world, but nature has begun to loosen its grip on it. And in that loosening, philosophy quietly takes its first breath. High above the harbour, a flat rooftop catches the last light of day as a young apprentice scribe waits for the first star to appear. Phocion has done this since childhood. He expects it to rise where the stories say it should, each star a wandering spirit carrying divine will. When the evening star emerges on cue, he murmurs a brief prayer, relieved by the sign. Footsteps follow. Thales climbs the stairs, a small wooden stick in his hand, the kind used for marking shadows. Thales asks Phocion to watch the star again. He lines it up against the edge of the parapet, scratches a mark, and tells the boy to return tomorrow, and the day after. Phocion agrees, unimpressed. Days pass, and something unsettles him. The star does not wander. It shifts in a slow, regular arc along the horizon. What once felt like intention now looks like motion. Thales explains that the heavens move by order, not favor. The ground beneath the old stories tilts. Perhaps the world is not speaking at all. Perhaps it is simply behaving. In the agora, the lesson continues in quieter form. Thales shows a potmaker how a shadow shortens and lengthens as the sun climbs and falls. The man only cares about his clay, when to dry it, when to shield it from heat. Thales plants his staff upright and marks the shadow hour by hour. What the potmaker calls luck, Thales calls the sun's course. Habit gives way to measure. Superstition gives way to anticipation. The craft becomes readable. Seen from above, these gestures are small but decisive. Measuring a shadow, tracking a star, noting tides and winds. Each replaces intention with sequence, omen with observation. Thales does not promise certainty. He promises continuity. To understand an event, one looks for its cause, not its meaning. Knowledge grows from watching, comparing, and trusting that nature repeats itself. Night returns. Phocion stands on the roof again, this time without prayer. He marks the star's place with the same stick. What once felt like reverence now feels like inquiry. A mind raised on myth begins to taste order. The change is quiet, but it does not reverse. Something subtle but irreversible has happened. The world has not lost its mystery, but it has changed where mystery lives. What once demanded appeasement now invites attention. Nature no longer speaks in intentions, it moves in patterns, and those patterns can be followed. With that shift, something is gained. Fear loosens its grip. Events become intelligible rather than personal. A storm can be anticipated, a season can be measured. Knowledge begins to grow not from obedience, but from looking again and comparing what is seen. Order steps out from behind the gods and takes its place within the world itself. Yet something is also set aside. When meaning leaves the sky and enters the mind, the universe grows quieter. Stories lose some of their power to comfort. The sacred no longer surrounds every event. It retreats, refined into explanation, precision, and rule. This is the moment when wonder becomes method, when memory gives way to observation, when power will eventually learn to rely on knowledge rather than myth. In the next step of the journey, thought turns inward. If nature can be ordered by reason, then perhaps human life can be as well, and philosophy moves from the world to the self.